All right, today we're going to be talking about incorporating quotes into our essays because when it comes to the things that students struggle with the most, I would say that this is near the top of the list. Because there's a lot of different ways where you can incorporate quotes incorrectly. You can just kind of make them their own sentence without any context. You cannot tell me who is saying them. You cannot tell me any more information that I need. You might overquote and use too much. You might underquote, use too little. You might not cite it correctly. You might not have the grammar correctly. So there's a lot going on with incorporating quotes. And hopefully, this very short video will be kind of a guide for you when you are going through it. Okay? So, again, incorporating quotes, and there's two major reasons why you do incorporate quotes because I think a lot of kids ask, "Why do I need quotes?" So I can just have my own opinion. And everyone is entitled to their own opinion, and I strongly believe that. But until you can back it up with sufficient evidence, with credible evidence, no one has to believe you. And for an essay, in particular a literature essay, your evidence is the actual book. Or in our case, the actual book plus what other scholars are saying about the book that you're talking about. And so quotes do two things. One, they help prove that your claim is accurate, and which is what you need. Like I just said, your opinion matters, but no one has to listen until you back it up with these quotes, and so that is important. Number two, it's always important to use the actual language of the author or of the actual, of the author because each one has an author. And it's important to put their own words into it. It gives your essay some more validity and it gives it some more weight and goes, oh, this person's not just spewing out their own butt. They're actually using credible sources. And if you can give the name of those sources and where they got it from, in particular for maybe not for literature essays, but more for debates and stuff like that. If you can tell me that who your source is and what his or her job title is, that adds some credibility to your source as well. And using your own words, it makes them sound like that you're taking from them, you're learning from them. Some pretty good stuff there. Okay. Now, when it comes to quoting a book in particular, I feel like kids just look for a passage and they find a whole paragraph that they like and then they just copy and paste that in. Even if you cite it correctly, that is technically plagiarism. If the majority of your paper is not yours, even if you cite it, that's still plagiarism, okay? So, I always tell you to quote what you need. Quote the part of that paragraph that is the most important part, and then use the rest of it to summarize that scene and summarize that paragraph, and then just quote the little part that you need. And so, for example, here, this is from the part where Huck is telling Jim that they need to leave the island because there are people coming in to look for Jim to get a reward. And this is the whole quote: "Get up and hump yourself, Jim. There ain't a minute to lose. They're after us." Now, if I am writing this paper and I really want to use this quote, technically the whole quote is not needed because the most important part of it is the part where it says they're after us. So, I don't need to use this whole thing just to get that part. What I will do in my paper then is I will summarize that scene and just kind of talk about it, and I'll show you an example here in just a little bit. Now, the best way to incorporate a quote is to put it within a sentence. There is a ways when you're introducing a quote within a whole sentence. We can talk about that one-on-one if you want to, but I think for the most part, what I hope that you guys and girls do is you incorporate quotes within your own sentences, okay? Now, in order to do this, you have to make sure that your grammar is accurate and your grammar is correct. So, and there's a couple ways to do it. And the first one is with an incomplete sentence. This can also be what I would consider a tag. And what that tag normally does is it tells me who is talking and when they're talking and stuff like that. And so if you're going to use one that has a tag where it's like Huck says, or Tom shouts, or Jim says, whatever it is, this is where you would use this. And if you do that, then you will put a comma before you do the talking, or before that character talks. So going back to this sentence, if I'm going to use that they're after us, notice how I actually quoted this incorrectly here. But this is a quote from the book, and this is dialogue from the book. And I'll show you how you do dialogue here in just a second as well. Okay? So, here is my incomplete sentence example. After Huck learns that people are going to be coming to the island to find Jim, he gets back to Jim and shouts, "They're after us." So, and if you wanted to incorporate like the get up, help yourself, Jim, time, and it's a lose, you could in this part say, he gets back to Jim and says that they need to hurry and leave because they're after us. Now, it's important to do that they're after us in only that part because that's the most important part of that sentence or those couple sentences. Because that's the part that you're going to dissect and you're going to talk about the word us. You're not going to talk about the get up and help yourself, Jim, and moment to lose. You're not going to talk about that. So why would you quote it? Quote the part that's the most important part that you need, okay? Now, if you notice here, I do tell you who is saying the quote. I say Huck there, and he gets back to Jim and shouts. Make sure that if you're doing pronouns like this, that you're being careful, that you're making sure that we know who is talking, okay? If you also notice here, I tell you where it happens in the book. So it's after Huck learns that people are going to be coming to the island to find Jim. If you want to get more specific, you can say in the last 10 chapters, or in chapter 38, or during the climax, or during, the climax of the book, or during the chase scene, or whatever it might be. You can do it that way as well. Okay? And then lastly, if you notice here, I have the two dialogue tag, or the two quotation mark, and then I have just the one, okay? The two, no matter if you're doing dialogue or narration or whatever you are quoting, you will always have the twos, okay? And then you have the one. The one is for dialogue because normally in a text, dialogue is the two quotes like this one. So you need to make sure that you change that 2 to a 1. That lets your reader know that you are quoting dialogue, okay? If I were to screenshot any photo or any slide from here, I would screenshot this one right now, okay? Now, one thing I also want to show you, and I've already seen 3 people do this incorrectly so far. Twain64. I've seen a comma in there. You do not need a comma in there. Do not put a comma in there. A comma in there is wrong. Do not do it, okay? All right, so that was for an incomplete sentence if you were going to do a dialogue tag like he says or he shouts, he screams, whatever it might be. This is if you're just going to put part of the text into your own sentence, this is called a blended sentence. And for this one, there's no comma because you're just going straight through, okay? And this one is a little bit better if you are more into, if you're not going to use dialogue, this one's going to be better. If you're using dialogue, you can still do this one. It's just a little bit tougher. I mean, I could have probably said, Huck wanted them to do that because they're after, and tells Jim to get going because they're after us. That one's not necessarily a dialogue tag, but it kind of is. It was kind of in the middle ground. So I found a quote that kind of deals more with the Shepherdsons and the Grangerfords, And so this is when Sophia and Henry run off because they're in love and there's a big fight and Huck feels guilty. And so my part of the sentence is Huck felt guilty about fetching Sophia the Bible because, quote, that piece of paper meant that Miss Sophia was to meet Henry somewheres at 2:30 and run off. Twain 118. Now, if I wanted to focus in on the guilty part of this, I would quote the guilty part because I think it says in there that he feels really guilty. But I instead went this way. I could have said, that Huck felt guilty. Now, so notice that there's nothing there, and notice on both of these as well. I'm sorry. Let me go back to this one too. Okay, this one ends in an exclamation point. Okay, that stays in there, and then the period, and there's still a period there. If this was just a period in the text, you would actually take it out and you would just put it right there. So there would be no period there. There would be a period there because you're creating your own brand new sentence, and so you don't need another period in there. If you go to this one, if you notice that there would have been a period there, or you can do it in the middle of a sentence from a text as well, you would take it out and then you would put a period there still. So a period will always go there no matter what. If that exclamation point was a question mark, that would still be there. They would stay there and then still a period. Okay? All right. And so that is it for quotations. Play around with it. Try to incorporate them into your own sentences. Make your own new sentences with the quotes. Don't overquote. Pick out the part that is most important and summarize the rest of it. Okay? That's the biggest thing to take away from this. Take what you need, summarize the rest. All right. Thank you.